Hey everyone! One of the most interesting challenges that I've had to date as a composer was to compose the piece that I want to talk to you about today, Fantasy on Open Strings. When Hoff-Barthelson Music School's viola club director, Naomi Graf, asked me to compose a new piece for viola club, my first reaction was, what's a viola club? Over the course of the next few months, I began to learn the answer to this as I got to know the viola club. There was a specific day when the entire viola club paraded around the school playing the theme to Mahler's First Symphony in celebration of Halloween. That's when I knew that this was going to be a fun project. The challenge, though, came from creating a piece that could be played by a group that consisted of both beginner violists who were just learning to play the open strings all the way to advanced high school students, some preparing to begin their careers with degrees in viola performance. I began by trying to think of everything that could be done while an open C was playing. This led me to immediately think of Henry Purcell's Fantasia upon One Note, during which the viola plays whole notes on middle C for the entire piece. Meanwhile, the other parts play intricate lines, and the piece moves through different modes and keys, sometimes in very surprising ways. I used this idea of a single note being used as a harmonic anchor for certain parts of the piece, but this is also where the title of the piece comes from. Like Purcell, though, my piece would always utilize drastically different musical material throughout and jump between these sections rather abruptly. As a way to begin introducing this idea, I started with a section that didn't offer anything melodically, but that slowly built the overtone series of that open C string of the viola. The overtone series is a set of intervals that get incrementally closer together as you go up. I loved the idea of being able to introduce something like spectral music and the overtone series to the kids, but it also creates a great ambiance to everything that comes next, being based primarily off this open C string. Each occurrence of these overtones gets incrementally higher in the series, and the notes occur faster and faster so that more can occur in the same span each time. After this, though, I knew I was going to need a section that truly did offer a challenge to the more advanced students. So, I followed the opening section with these fast scales in the first and second parts. However, I paired with that short attacks in other parts, which offered the younger players a chance to continue to participate in something that sounded significantly more intricate and challenging to the ensemble. I also took this as an opportunity to introduce other open strings to the younger players with the A and D strings, while also introducing the octatonic scale, a scale that continually moves between whole steps and half steps for the older players in the group. This admittedly offered a significant counting challenge for the younger players, but I loved the idea of giving them that challenge and seeing how they responded to it. I can honestly say that I was amazed throughout in how these kids responded to the challenges of this piece, especially in the midst of the pandemic. Following this aggressive and fast section, I moved into a section of the piece that actually used material from my viola concerto that I had written in 2016 for violist Daniel Lamas. During the cadenza, Daniel asked for some music that required him to pizzicato while also bowing. The only way to do this, though, would be to pizz an open C string, which is why it worked perfectly for this fantasy. Now, though, instead of one person playing all of the parts, the music was divided up into all of the parts with the youngest players now essentially acting as a metronome. The cross rhythms of 2 against 3, which is the dotted quarters against the quarter notes, throughout this makes it a fun syncopated feel while asking very little of the beginner players. Because this was now for 5 parts instead of a solo player, I was able to add other moving lines and parts into it as well, which also gave me the ability to expand this significantly from its original section in the cadenza of the viola concerto. Following this fun dance section, I placed a long held note on the open C and G strings of the viola to really drive home that amazing sound that the viola has when it plays its perfect fifths on the lowest 2 strings. This helps diffuse the energy from the earlier sections as it diminuendos and leads into the piece's final section. In this last section, I decided to end with a harmonically and beautifully driven section where the harmonies are very oftentimes built with the open strings in mind. There are some great moments as well, though, when I needed to not include a C in order to get the chord and the sound I wanted. This was crucial for me because while the Purcell is interesting to study because of how it never leaves that held C, that same effect also greatly limits what can be done within the piece. I wanted to make sure that the inspiration for this piece didn't also limit it. As I finished the piece, we all went into lockdown and we initially only created a virtual performance of the last section. However, the next year the Viola Club worked to create an incredible virtual performance that I put together the audio and video for so that we could share it with the world. Hang around and there will be a link to the virtual performance that we put together during the pandemic of Fantasy on Open Strings. But let me know, what are some of the pieces that you know work well for groups with diverse playing abilities? Have you ever played with an ensemble that could use a piece like this? Tell me in the comments below and be sure to subscribe and leave a like before you leave.